have Damali Rhett Harding, who's joining us, and we want to welcome you, Damali, to Win TV, and to really talk to us about, this whole issue of climate change, how it's impacting our individual households and our ability to maintain our utilities.
Yeah, so climate change and utilities, they've been paying attention to this for the last 10 years in a real and meaningful way. And the word I would use to describe it is resiliency. So what you're seeing, we talked about, mentioned the tornadoes, which we never thought would really happen here at that level of impact. You can look at Hurricane Sandy. You can look at in this area. We all are familiar with the word derecho now with the high winds that are coming. And so Pepco, BGE, SMECO, Dominion are really all trying to build this grid to be resilient and to last against these storms that typically, were coming every 10 years, every 20 years. We're now seeing every 3 years, every 5 years. And so we all need to be able to come back online quickly and safely.
And because of these natural occurrences, I won't call them, they become disasters when, houses are blown away and people lose property and there's death and dying. But, because of these natural calamities that occur, how is that impacting our pocketbooks? How do we as consumers prepare for, like you said, what may happen every 10 or 20 years?
I think the things that you're seeing are one, we haven't really felt it yet, but I think you're seeing a lot of innovation and a lot of innovation from our communities. Even somebody was just telling me about a startup run by a Black woman for energy efficiency. And so we're looking at how do we take advantage of this? One, there's a lot of opportunity in thinking about things like battery storage, right? So, what happens if Pepco can't turn on the lights, but you have a battery that can run your house for 3 days, and now you can just run at least your refrigerator and your essentials. What does that mean for people who have solar? And in this idea of equity, we're trying to really think about, okay, what does that mean for people who can't afford solar or can't afford a battery? How do we prevent them from, in times of disasters or times of, these storms and winter weather and all of the things that impact their need for electricity? How do we ensure that they have access to the same energy that people, who live in Rock Creek do? And so it really is thinking about, one, again, this idea of resiliency. Two, what you're seeing now, which I've noticed in the last 3 years, is all of the utilities are asking questions about, one, what do we need to do to serve people who are energy insecure, right? So an average, if you look at brown and Black populations, an average 50% of us in any given month are asking questions about, do we pay the light bill? Do we pay the gas bill? Or do we pay medicine? Do we pay food? And finally, the government started even looking at and asking these questions. So we actually have the data to know that these are questions that people are making decisions on. Utilities are now finally start to ask themselves, okay, we need to be able to identify these people and not just identify people who may be on a special rate, but identify people who are actually struggling. And at my own company, we actually call it ability to pay, right? Because we know that as you move down the scale, your energy burden or the percentage of cost you pay for energy goes up as a percentage of your income. And so that really impacts your ability when you're paying 20% of your income to your energy cost versus somebody else who's only paying 3, but the cost of the actual energy is the same. You've created an equity burden right there. And so one is identification. Two is, one, getting people to get comfortable with enrollments. So we know that there are programs out there that will help people, but there are a lot of barriers to entry. They're confusing. They ask for different things. You take DC. DC has 3 separate utilities, one of which is a municipal utility, DC Water. So now I have to sign up for 3 different programs instead of being able to go to a one-stop shop or have somebody help me. I need to actually have a laptop and somebody to sit down and guide me through that. And how do we solve these issues and questions?
I'm so glad that you brought that up because, it's always great to have the utility companies on who can proudly announce the programs that they have to address those issues, but they realize that they're not reaching a lot of the people in the community that really need them. And then, of course, just like the vaccine and everything else, people just won't sign up.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, we've outlined what the problem is. So, what is a solution to that?
So, a couple of solutions. One is people have more control over their energy use than they realize. And so they can find out, like Pepco, for example. I would encourage anybody on Pepco, BGE, SMECO. You can get a weekly electricity report that is free, that will be emailed to you, that will tell you how much you're using on a weekly basis, if you're higher or lower, the day that you use the most and the times that you use the most. And that idea of, the reason I push that is that idea of information means that you can recognize, you know what, maybe I'm using a lot because on Saturdays I'm cooking all of my meals, I'm doing all my meal prep for the week, and that's using up a lot of electricity. Are there times that I can do that a different time? Are there ways that I can do that to save money, to save energy? The other thing I would advocate for is at least once a quarter, and I work in this industry and I do this too, we tend to just look at the dollar amount that we pay for energy. Don't do that. At least once a quarter, either open up the bill, download your bill, and actually look at the rates that you're paying. One, make sure that you are paying, if you expect to be on a Pepco rate, a BGE rate, make sure that you're on that actual rate. Two, actually look at the rates you have. And in this region, we have the ability to choose a different supplier. So there actually may be opportunities where you may be able to save money by moving to a different supplier. I want to caveat that does not mean that Pepco or BGE owes you money, because we all get those phone calls, but you should do that judiciously, because that is an opportunity. Second, if you're having challenges, go to the People's Council. So DC, Virginia, Maryland all have a People's Advocate, a People's Council that can help you identify what these programs are. A lot of people think that they're not going to be eligible because they make too much money or there's different circumstances, and that doesn't have to be the case. Is that use the resources. Those resources are there and available, and they want to help, and they literally are the advocates. They call themselves the people's advocates.
Right,
Use them
right.
because they're an interface into the utilities. So.
No, Damali, this is really, really great information. And we hope that through this program, people will follow some of your advice, including me, because you've said some things that even I don't do. But I think that it's great advice. And, it's our objective or our goal to make sure that this information gets out to the community, because a lot of people are behind in those utility bills right now due to COVID, loss of jobs, unemployment checks that they're waiting for, what have you. So I want to thank you, because not only have we outlined the problem, but also talked about some solutions. And you mentioned talking to the Office of the People's Council. We've had them on the show.
Yep.
Is there any way, or if people wanted to reach out to you to say, what was that you said again about downloading my bill? How would they do that?
Yep, best way is I'm Googleable. Googleable. I don't know if that's a verb, but you can absolutely find me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy if people have questions about bills. I did this all up and down the country. I'm happy to schedule a Zoom and walk through each part of your bill and explain it to you. I can do it in 5 minutes or less. So definitely take advantage of that if that's something you're looking for.
I so appreciate this time, and I hope people will take you up on that. And we might have to get you back on, particularly when we get to the hot days of the summer, which
Yes.
I know they're
I
coming.
could talk about that.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Denise.
though. All righty.